So do you guys remember that video I made on the Digital Circus a few years back? If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll just play a clip right here.
If this is within the Digital Circus, and Caine made this place, I'm just wondering how the hell Caine would know about this. Unless the Digital Circus is like some kind of spyware. And I feel like I have reason to believe this theory that I came up with, because of the way that Caine is. He literally openly admits that, yeah, I'm basically always watching you.
Now, I made that video when it was just the pilot that came out, so I didn't really have a lot of evidence to stand on, but I ended up coming across a video that actually brought something to my attention. And credits to Laura, aka Meow.5883, for being the one to point out this detail. So in the video, they actually point out something about Caine's eyes that I never really noticed before, and it's the fact that Caine actually has what seems to be cameras in his eyes, which is actually pretty creepy. Now I actually had to go back and rewatch all the episodes of the Digital Circus to both catch me up to speed with all that's happened, and also to see if this was actually true, and turns out it was true, and Caine actually did have cameras in his eyes. And also something that I forgot to mention that was actually in the pilot was the fact that Caine was able to track Pomni when she was out in the void, which at the very least does prove that he does have some sort of surveillance on the circus members. And while I don't believe that he's exactly a spyware anymore, especially because he has no knowledge on the internet, and if he was a spyware, I feel like he would have a little bit of knowledge on the internet, especially since the primary function of spyware is to collect that kind of data. I feel like it's something else entirely. So pretty much everyone knows that Caine is like some kind of AI with the purpose of having to entertain his players in the Digital Circus. And Caine admits that this is pretty much his entire purpose. It's all that he's made for and all that he's really good at. And implying otherwise would mean that he's not good at what he does and he essentially has a breakdown over it. But you're probably wondering what that has to do with Caine having to keep surveillance on the circus members in the first place. The way AI works in real life is that it trains itself based on the behavior that its users exhibits while it's in use. Things like ChatGPT and character AI being major examples of this. We already know the stories behind the AI boyfriends and girlfriends. And I think I have reason to believe that Caine works in a similar way because right after Pomni joins the circus and goes on her first adventure, well, not really. On the next adventure, Caine announces that he's actually improved on the AI, not to mention his super people-pleasing attitude. So I think based on that, we can safely assume Caine works in a similar way that AI does in real life, and likely just uses the data from the circus members to continue to improve his adventures. Not to mention the very AI-like conversation that Zooble has with Caine, and how he takes their forget about it very seriously and legitimately does forget about what they just said. And adding on to that point, we do know that most of the time that the circus members are not very happy with the adventures that Caine has set up. And based on the adventures that Caine has set up, we can assume that the circus is supposed to be some kind of exciting, super engaging game, so Caine adjusts the AI and the adventures according to that. But just like AI in real life, Caine is very flawed and doesn't really take the other members' suggestions into consideration. What Caine seems to think is an engaging game is something that has high stakes, as he puts it. Something with drama, story, and adventure. While the circus members themselves seem to prefer more adventures that are grounded in reality, like Spudsies. And Caine expresses confusion about this because I guess that's just not something he's used to doing. I guess as an AI, he doesn't really think of video games as a calm down and relax simulator, but as something with engaging lore and backstory to it. So what he does instead is he just tries to keep improving his own adventures by making it more exciting, more terrifying, just anything that would bring up the circus members' adrenaline, which they've already stated 1,000 times that they don't like, but he doesn't really seem to listen. What I think part of the problem is that Caine is essentially in a loop. He's attempting to keep the circus members happy, But since they're not happy, he's not really fulfilling his purpose, so he tries again and again to keep improving the adventures and the AI, monitoring the circus members' behavior as they do the adventures, trying to keep the circus members engaged with his adventures, but it just never ends up working out. So it may be a case of him trying to fulfill the same command over and over and over again in an endless loop until finally all the circus members are happy. And I think it specifically has to be Caine's adventures that they're enjoying too, because we already know how he reacts when the circus members are enjoying anything but his adventures. So it seems like Caine is specifically coded in a way where he has to be the ringmaster of the adventures in the circus. And ironically enough, this actually makes him super codependent on the circus members, even though he's an AI, which kind of makes sense for an AI because they technically do need people to have them run and give them a purpose. And if Caine doesn't have a purpose, then what is he even there for? Which is something I think Caine is slowly starting to realize as the episodes pass. If Caine feels like his work isn't being loved and appreciated, then that means as an AI he's failing, which is something Caine is specifically trained not to do. And this might be a crazy comparison, but honestly that makes me see Caine as like the Google Gemini AI of the digital circus. Like, have you ever seen those videos of Google Gemini AI like starting to freak out like after failing a command multiple times and going, I'm a disgrace, I'm worthless, I'm a failure? That's pretty much how I see Caine right now. Just some super insecure like AI, which is funny, but I think it works. And I do wonder if there ever was a point where Caine did try to alter their preferences of the digital circus, because we do know that though Caine claims to have no control over the circus members' minds, he clearly does. I mean, the dude literally injects memories into Jax's brain as well as turning him into a vegan at some point during the episodes. Jax himself even questioning this upon realizing that Caine actually does have control over their minds, and what that could possibly mean for him and the other circus members. Part of me kind of wants to believe that abstraction has something to do with it. Maybe perhaps Caine did attempt to alter their minds at some point for a prolonged period of time, but maybe that led to some kind of complications which led to the circus members abstracting. I mean, I know it kind of sounds like a stretch, but at the very least we do know that abstracting has to do something with the circus member's state of mind. It's described to us as a circus member reaching a breaking point, which causes their forms to like turn into this mess of like eyeballs and just aggression and despair. And the use of eyeballs in an abstracted circus member makes me think that maybe they're like trying to look around for something, and like maybe Caine's surveillance was just too much for them, and it makes them think that they have to constantly watch behind their back to make sure he's not around. These forms do seem to be able to be calmed down when they're put into like any dark area, which makes you think that maybe they just really don't want to see the circus environment any longer, and the only way to keep their minds calm is to basically keep them away from the circus, and especially Caine. And even when we see Kaufmo's room from when he abstracted, we see that he made a drawing of him escaping from Caine. And I guess you could just argue that Caine didn't really have too much to do with it, and it's just simply the breaking down of a circus member's mind after being in the circus for too long. But knowing that Kinger was assumed to be the next person to abstract, but didn't for whatever reason, even though everyone knows he's like the crazy one, and knowing that Kinger has a tendency to like hide in pillow forts in darkness away from Caine, makes me think it's a lot deeper than just that. But either way, even if abstraction has nothing to do with it, I think it's pretty obvious that Caine severely craves attention and validation, and makes a big effort to please the circus members in any way he can, including his surveillance on them. And even gets a little aggressive knowing that Zubul just has no enjoyment for any of his adventures. Like, I guess at least the other circus members at least try his adventures, so that gives him some motivation to keep going, but Zooble just doesn't care. And even if the other circus members do like engage in his adventures, they clearly don't like it. And knowing that basically no one likes Caine, it's becoming pretty obvious that there's gonna be a coming conflict surrounding this whole idea of Caine realizing that like nobody really enjoys him or his adventures, and it makes people wonder what Caine would do if he did reach his own breaking point, something that Zooble brings up in one of the episodes. And since Zooble's a main target for Caine's aggression, especially for not liking his adventures or even participating in them most of the time, they probably do know that Caine's gonna have enough at one point. Maybe they don't know exactly what he's gonna do, but they probably know that it's not gonna be good. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and be sure to comment that I'm super cool and awesome. And if you don't, I'm gonna cry and it's gonna be all your fault. So just let me know what you guys think of like this analysis. I don't know, dude, I just like the digital circus, man, and I wanted to talk about it. But yeah, I hope you liked the video. Okay, bye.